Hi there, everyone. Welcome to our TEN Life Science Syndicate today. We have a really great lineup of pitches. Hall Martin will be talking a little bit more about what we do here at TEN Capital Network. Hall?
Great. Thanks, Kat. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to talk a little bit about TEN Capital before we kick off and want to welcome you to this virtual event that we have here. At heart, TEN Capital helps startups and investors connect for funding. Next slide. And we've been doing this since 2009. We were originally called Texas Entrepreneurs Network. And what we do is at heart, we're helping startups and growth companies raise funding through our fundraise campaigns. We basically take your pitch deck, go out to our network, generate a list of interested investors, and then you pitch to them in our online events, our in-person events, and we also have dinner events. We also have some other online events to help carry them forward. We also do fundraise strategy. We also help with the deck. We also help with 409A valuations. We also write due diligence reports. So we build the content that makes the deal bigger and more interesting for the investor. So in short, we provide the legwork, saving you time and money. Next slide. We also help form capital for early stage companies. What we do here is we have high net worths that want to start family offices, and we foster that. We have VC funds that want to raise from limited partners, mostly family offices, and we have a dinner series for them to do that. And we also help angel groups find members, and we find many individuals would do better as an investor in a group than by themselves, and so we help foster them to go into an angel group. So we're forming capital for the early stage is what we do. Next slide. So we have today our Life Science Syndicate event, which you can see on the screen, which is for life science companies. We also have a family office roundtable. It's a 2-hour session where we talk about topics relevant to those who are starting and running a family office. And then finally, we have a quick pitch, which is for tech companies as well. Each company gets 10 minutes to pitch, 5 minutes of Q&A, and then we poll the audience for interest. If you want to learn more about our events, just go to tencapital.group and you'll see all the events that we have coming up. If we go to the next slide. If you're a startup and you want to raise funding, take a picture of that QR code and fill out the form, and we'll follow up with you to see if this program is a good fit for your fundraise. Next slide. We also have a chatbot. We have quite a bit of content we've developed over the years. We have the Investor Connect podcast, in which we have interviewed over 850 investors, angel, VC, family offices, and others, about what they invest in and how they invest, et cetera. And so what we do is we put that content in our chatbot, and we also have what's called the Startup Funding Espresso. The time it takes to drink an espresso, you can learn something about startup funding and investing. These are short 300-word micro blog posts with a short audio with it. And we've taken all of those and put them inside a chatbot. So instead of searching through them for the answer, you just ask the bot a question and it just gives you the answer straight away. Let's hear more about how it works.
Hi there. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Ava, your personal AI venture assistant. I'm your new best friend in the world of investing in startups, the TEN Capital AI chatbot. I'm here to make your journey through the startup ecosystem easier, faster, and a lot more fun. Need help finding your next big investment? Or maybe you're a founder looking for fundraising tips? I've got you covered. I pull all my knowledge from over 500 blogs, countless podcasts, and even some nifty calculators, like the How Fundable Is Your Startup tool, to give you the answers you need. So how do I work? Easy. You simply go to where I live on startupfundingespresso.com and look for me in the bottom right. As soon as I appear, go ahead and click on me to let me know you're here. And then there you go. All your questions answered at your fingertips. Whether you're into health tech, biotech, life sciences, or any of the other exciting fields out there, I'm equipped to help you navigate the trends, challenges, and opportunities in each one. Got a question? Just ask. And guess what? I even pull insights from the TEN Capital Network podcast on Investor Connect. It's packed with expert advice, success stories, and more, all designed to help you succeed in the venture capital world. So what are you waiting for? Let's chat. I'm here 24/7 to help you find the right answers, connect with great opportunities, and make the most out of your investments. See you on startupfundingespresso.com.
Great. So with that, let's get started with our guest speaker today. We have with us on the panel Clarence Hampton. Clarence, can you tell us more about yourself and what you're working on these days?
Yeah, greetings, everybody. Been a serial chief revenue officer for multiple tech companies, several exits. I've been acting as a CRO to go for startups and advanced stage companies over the last decade. One of the things that the focus is on healthcare, because that's where I come from, is the healthcare tech world, and happy to contribute and add some insight today. Thanks, Alan.
Great. And so let's bring up our first presenter today. We have with us Nathan Monte of Enamel Pure. And Nathan, let's go ahead and kick off and listen to your presentation and see what questions Clarence and I have for you there.
Thanks, all. You should be able to see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Nathan Monte, co-founder and CEO of Enamel Pure, healthy enamel pure smiles. So Enamel Pure is attacking the hygiene market where you go to get your teeth cleaned. We're packaging a laser and an imaging technology, which is mostly a special camera, so that we can advance the technology at the hygiene chair about 50 years, right? So the thing that's surprising about the hygiene market is it's so large. It's a total of 22 billion. Teeth cleanings, fluoride treatments in the office, and whitenings are about 16 billion, and clear aligners are about 6 billion. Worldwide, it's 50 billion. So we package our system in a device called Loon, shown on the screen. The laser is used to clean your teeth twice as fast as they can do it today. The laser is used to harden your teeth to replace the fluoride treatments. The hardening is 5 to 10 times harder than the fluoride treatments, and it's very consistent over the whole enamel surface. And then the whitening is more of a convenience whitening, where the mouth guard is put in the patient's mouth and there's a battery involved, so the patient can drive home with the mouth guard, doesn't have to have a custom mouth guard or sit around the office waiting for the results. And then the camera is up in the top right-hand corner. We couple the camera through our lasso optic at the end of the beam delivery alongside or collinear to the laser. So it comes out the handpiece. And so while the hygienist is cleaning the teeth, the camera is imaging the teeth simultaneously. That way we can get a 3D image of the teeth and the gums to do diagnostics without extending the time frame in the dental office. The system costs a total of $35K, about $750 or $800 a month. And this is an easy slide. The manual teeth cleaning of today is noisy, bleeding, painful, a lot of rinsing, and the diagnostics are done visually by the hygienist or the dentist. They vary from practitioner to practitioner. There's no computerization involved at all. So the laser cleaning is twice as fast. It's quiet. It's non-contact. You don't feel anything. You hear a little something, and that's how you know that the laser is cleaning your teeth. It completely removes the plaque, and for the first time ever, we kill the bacteria and the viruses on your teeth. The laser purification, which is our marketing name for hardening, the laser enamel hardening is 10 times harder, like I said. So it resists the acid dissolution of your teeth over time to eliminate yellow teeth or cracked teeth when you're older. And the whitening, again, is just a convenience. It makes it easy and cheap for the patient to have a professional dental office whitening. The AI is the imaging. So we image your teeth while they're being cleaned. We end up with a 3D image, both color, color in both 2D and 3D. And those images can be converted to a measurement file called an STL file. So that is sent to the clear aligner manufacturers to manufacture the clear aligners. This will be the most robust data set ever in dentistry because 160 million people go to the hygienist every year to have their teeth cleaned, and we do the measurement and the imaging at the same time. We'll have millions of images for our AI to process. Dentistry is perfect for AI because all dental diagnostics is based on what you see. What will the AI do? It'll see if you're night grinding, see if your tooth is cracked, see where your cavities are. Right now, nobody has any idea what average gum recession is. So with our data set, we'll be able to define that and tell people in their 20s, you know, your gums are receding faster than normal. You need to do something about it now. Your teeth are eroding faster than more normal. You need to do something about it now. By having a very large data set in a medical device area where imaging is so critical to the diagnostics, AI is a perfect solution. So we finished up the hygienic treatment technologies last year. This year we're developing the camera, and we're also doing the AI next year. So this year and next we'll introduce the first annual AI oral health report, much like a lipid panel report you get for your blood work. And then in the years after that, we'll reconcile data records with medical records to see if we can see if, you know, high enamel loss leads to brain disease or heart disease. Okay, so we have a real problem, which is oral health, that it hasn't changed in 50 years. We have a fabulous solution. It's cost effective. How do we get it to market? We've signed up 3 major distributors. One is Henry Schein, the largest in the world. The second one is Benco, the 3rd largest in the United States. And the last is Medicine Partners, who targets the conglomerates, the dental service organizations, the large groupings of dental offices, Aspen Dental, Heartland Dental, Pacific Dental, North American Dental Group, all of those businesses. There's a top 25. So Medicine is only targeting those 25. We go after early adopters and pediatrics to start. We do the sales and service in-house. And the equipment is made at a contract manufacturer who ships directly to the dental office. These next 2 slides talk about how we fit into the dental industry. We just make the device, the camera, the laser, and then we do the regulatory and IP in-house. We just make the Loon Pure Hygiene system. We use partners to sell everything, to do the AI, to make the clear aligners. The reason we do it that way, because it's much more cash efficient, and it also gets us into the market much more quickly. And then the device itself sits next to the hygiene chair. The hygienist just waves the handpiece over your mouth to clean your teeth. And then the imaging is uploaded to the practice management system in the office. We don't do the practice management system. That's our partners. And the partners coordinate the AI for us. So we just get the patient number from the practice management system, and we attach that to the imagery and upload it. And that way we can fit immediately and seamlessly into the dental office and integrate into all of the technology that's in the dental office. That allows us to start selling immediately and integrate immediately. Product resources, like I said, in Newburyport, Massachusetts, is manufacturing or assembling the product. Most of the components come from Asia or Europe. We have no direct competition, just the mechanical scrapers that exist with the clunky scanners. We have over 23 patents filed. 7 of those 23 are issued. We've got 6 more in work. So once we sell this, how do we make money? We sell the Loon system, so we make money on capital equipment. We make money per procedure, so we charge for the cleaning, $2 each. We charge for the purification or the hardening, so we charge $3 each, which the inner office fluoride varnish already costs, so we're just replacing that cost in the office. And then the whitening mouth guard is less expensive than other professional mouth guards. And then once we have the AI data from the measurement, from the cameras, we charge to upload the imaging for AI, and we also charge to upload the measurement data for the clear aligner people. So I'm Nathan Monty. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started a company called Light Laser. We sold that to Danaher Corporation. It was Videojet Technologies, a subsidiary of Danaher. And then I started a company called Convergent Dental that uses the laser to drill cavities in dentistry. That's at about 28 million in sales. They're up to 100 people, and hopefully they'll be floating or, putting the company on NASDAQ in the next year, 12 to 18 months. My business partner, Chuck, he's a patent lawyer, so he manages all the IP. Previously, he was an engineer and worked on laser and imaging in the med device field, primarily on skin resurfacing. I'll skip the patent slide. You can take a look at it if you're interested. So where are we and what are we asking for? We were cleared by the FDA in March of last year. The pilot manufacturing is going on now. We will have 5 units next week to actually start sending out to KOLs. We'll put one locally at a hygiene clinic, and then we'll be giving them to key opinion leaders, KOLs for Danaher and Shine, and product sales will start in April or May. And this is our ask. We still have a super seed going. There's about 250K left out of 1.5 million. That I do have to do some soft circled within that. But it'd be great to close that out. And then in May or June, I'll be going back around once revenue has started and revenue is in hand to do a larger raise to launch the product for sales and marketing at a $32 million pre. So it's the sale of preferred equity. It's not a SAFE or a note of any type. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Great, Nathan. Great presentation. Clarence, what's your first question?
So Nathan, when you're going through distributors, you obviously have a margin challenge. So if you've got a $35,000 medical equipment sale to the office, and I'm assuming you have about a 55-60% margin from Shine or somebody else. So your margins are somewhere in the 30s. Is that about right?
Just pretty close. You just got it swapped. So Shine and Benco take about 30%, about $10,000 per sale. And then we're left with about a 50% margin, about 12.5 or 13 BOM cost on a $25,000 sale.
Then in terms of the variable revenue that comes in, what's the margin on that when you start doing, you mentioned about 4 or 5 different components. So if you land an office and a typical dentist office, let's say, has 500 patients a year, what's the calculus on that?
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's where we make our money, obviously. So
yeah.
There's no it's 100% margin on everything because the laser doesn't have any cost to sell to operate. So we are just charging for the cleaning $2 each. There's 160 million patients have their teeth cleaned every year. So in theory, that's where 350 million. I know we'll never get to the total market, just to give you a feel for the size. And then we'll be charging $3 for the cleaning, and then the mouth guard does have a cost. We'll be charging about $30 for that with a cost of about $10. So it's about 2/3 margin. And then the data and the measurement files are all free, of course. So if you look at the 5-year revenue stream, between years 5 and 8, the recurring revenue is in excess of 70% of the revenue of the company.
Yeah. So this is very similar. I was in the medical aesthetics for quite a while, and it's very similar to cosmetic dermatologists that bring lasers into their office and they start to build a new P&L, from the lasers, and they have a dedicated space. So for a cosmetic dentist, of which there's probably close to 7,000 in the market, I realized you were going to start with pediatrics, but just as kind of a go-to-market that would put a lot more sizzle on the steak. My take on that, Nathan, is that you're really giving them a new profit center and an ROI sale, because the piece of equipment is going to make them more marketable to their local community about, we've got this latest and greatest painless, solution, which is going to draw more, butts in the seats. But you're really selling an ROI. You invest $35,000. Here's what the dentist practice is going to do. It seems like that's a big part of this, because for you guys, it's getting your foot in the door to get the residual, and that's like the anchor. But in terms of getting the adoption faster from the dental practices, to me, it ought to be packaged up as an ROI opportunity.
Yeah, the issue with that is there's 220,000 hygienists and 7,000 skin gals. So it's hard to for me to imagine for at least the first 5 years plus how I'm going to satisfy 220,000. If we just had 1% per year, it would be very difficult to ramp up the manufacturing to meet that demand, right? So that would be 2,200 lasers per year, including the training and the install. And so over 5 years, be 10,000 lasers. So it's a hygiene, dental hygiene is an enormous market. It's just staggering to think of it as being 16 billion, but it is, and that's not a TAM or a projected number. That's actual money spent out of insurance companies and people's pockets every year. It's just gigantic. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm just not sure I can handle the hygiene market alone to start.
No, I get that. What have you estimated the sales cycle to be from start to finish, from whether it's Shine or anybody else? What have they told you?
Oh, 3 to 6 months. Yep, 3 to 6 months. It's a $35,000 device. The Invisalign scanner for clear aligners costs $35,000. So it's a very affordable price for every dental office all over America. So Invisalign, just so you know, they tried to charge per scan and it didn't work because there's lots of other scanners, right? But we charge per procedure, but it does work because there's no competition. Nobody else has a laser and an imaging device coupled together, along with 23 patents filed at the moment. So we're in a unique space within dentistry, and our laser allows them to clean teeth twice as fast, with the patients loving it and hygienists loving it. So I think we're in a really, really, really good spot.
Nathan, one last question, I'll turn it back to Hal. In terms of the PHI that you're getting from the dental patients, if you set up basically an API call that you're going to interface patient records, because you mentioned medical records a couple of times in your pitch.
Yep, that's right.
So obviously you've got other practices that are holding on to the patient data that might be Athena Health or anybody else, Epic, whoever it is. So have you guys had some kind of technology for the API call out to other electronic medical record platforms?
Yeah, well, we will develop that. We've already spoken to the practice management software people in dentistry. So we will, have a API call. We'll get the patient number, and then it comes back to our system. And then I say we get revenue, but we actually license the data. We license the imaging, we license the measurements, so we actually own it going forward. And then we can use the same data, like you say, to interface with the medical device record people. But first we have to get the data itself going, and then we'll work towards that. That'll be in 2 or 3 years.
Thanks.
Sure.
Hey. Well, I think that's our questions for this session. We're at the end of our time. Let's move to our next one. We have with us Sinaptica, Ken Mariusz. Ken, if you can launch your slides and kick off when ready.
Hey, thanks for having me. Let me know if my noise is too much. I'm here at the airport, just bouncing between cities. But happy to give you an update on and tell you the story about our personalized neuromodulation solution for Alzheimer's. So it is a new take on an existing technology. It's based on TMS brain stimulation technology, which you can see over here. This is an established, safe technology used for depression. And here what we've done is we've repurposed the technology and focused on a new target in the brain that's related to Alzheimer's. We're focusing on stimulating the networks that drive human memory and are most affected by Alzheimer's being a disease of memory. And so we've got results from 2 phase 2 clinical trials, randomized trials, one at 6 months, one at 12 months, unprecedented successful data across the board on every measure. We're backed by Sony and Time Zero Capital and a bunch of angels like you. So Alzheimer's is the disease of the century, holy grail of medicine. For me, it's a little bit personal. I've lost 2 grandparents to Alzheimer's. It is one of those most horrific diseases that takes 5 to 7 years, and it's a slow motion train wreck that engulfs the lives of caregivers and families in a way no other 100% fatal disease does. It's truly awful. The latest drugs from Biogen and Lilly, they do exactly what they're supposed to do. They clear amyloid from the brain, and yet the disease continues relentlessly. Cleaning up amyloid is like cleaning up the ashes after the house is burned down. We need to look at other targets and come at this disease from a totally new perspective. It's exactly what we're doing. We're focusing on strengthening the synapses. So in gold here, you see the synaptic function declines over time in lockstep with the disease. Makes sense, right? This is the wiring of the brain. So what we're doing is we're stimulating the brain and inducing neuroplasticity. That's meant to strengthen the brain. We could talk for hours about the mode of action if there's interest, but to put it really simply, when you strengthen neurons, when you stimulate neurons, they strengthen. And that's what we're trying to do. Nobody debates whether or not stimulation can induce neuroplasticity. The question is, can we get enough of it in the right places to counteract this freight train of a disease? And so what we've done is we've paired TMS stimulation, you see a little stimulator here, with EEG, and that changes everything because now for the first time we can confirm whether we're hitting the right targets in the brain. What are the right targets? The right target is the default mode network. As the name suggests, that's where your brain goes by default when it's integrating memories. And so later tonight, you might notice that memories from the day pop up to you randomly. That's the default mode network at work. It's integrating memories and deciding what's important enough to keep and what's not important and can be discarded. That is the role of the DMN. It's also involved in other processes of cognition. That is the target we're focusing on. We're stimulating in one region in the back of the head here, the precuneus, but what we're looking for is signals that the evoked potentials are reverberating around the network and lighting up the network like a Christmas tree is what I like to joke. So if we hit it just right, we can get engagement of the entire network. Now, if we're off by even a centimeter, we could miss the network entirely, and the dose needs to be calibrated for every patient. So the key to our IP is confirming with EEG in real time whether we've hit the right network. Our scientific co-founders have a long and illustrious history in brain stimulation. Giacomo's over in Rome. He's the director of the non-invasive brainstim lab at the Santa Lucia Foundation, which is a major neurodegenerative center for Europe. And Emiliano Santornecchi is over at Harvard. He directs the similar precision neuroscience and neuromodulation division there. And they've collaborated for about 15 years on developing this therapy and are the inventors of this amazing technology. They're published in all the right journals. They're supported by all the right foundations, including by the Bill Gates-backed ADDF. That's where Bill Gates puts his money. They have 5 grants between them from the ADDF who lead the science on a lot of Alzheimer's research. Anyway, they came up with this idea about 15 years ago that they could stimulate this network that drives human memory and use TMS EEG to confirm they've hit it. So this is the results from our second phase 2 at 1 year. This was presented on October 31st, just last year, at a major conference, the biggest conference in the world on Alzheimer's. This was the audience in attendance. And you could hear a pin drop because no one has seen results like this in 20 years. We hit every single measure. Every single measure was a complete success. The primary endpoint was the clinical dementia rating sum of boxes. That is the global gold standard endpoint that FDA requires for drug approvals, and we nailed it. We were able to slow down the disease here. You see the separation of 1.1 points between the active, that is the real stimulation, and the placebo, statistically significant. So we hit the primary endpoint with flying colors. Also, on measures of cognition, we slowed down the disease by remarkable amounts. ADAS-Cog and MMC are measures of cognition. And then on function, we slowed the disease by 87%. The active arm, meaning the arm that was stimulated, barely lost any function. This is a 78-point scale, whereas unfortunately the placebo lost about a tenth or more of their function, as expected. And then on behavioral disturbances, these are some of the worst effects of Alzheimer's. These manifest as agitation, aggression, hallucinations, depression. On that domain, we also now show a benefit to our stimulation. So we hit the trifecta, all 3, cognition, function, and behavior. I'm not showing you anything. I'm not hiding anything we didn't hit. We hit them all. So completely successful phase 2 study. And the worst thing that could happen to you is about a 10% chance of headache. That's the worst that could happen to you from this therapy. Whereas the drugs, by the way, carry up to 1 in 3 people on the drugs get brain bleeding. Brain bleeding, not good. There's been some deaths with some of the drugs to date. And the worst that could happen with us is a mild headache. We got FDA breakthrough designation. We're published in all the right journals. We're getting some great news from NBC and Newsweek now that the data is out. And as a result of the phase 2 study, the ADDF, that's where Bill Gates puts his money and Jeff Bezos puts his money to support Alzheimer's research. They came to us and asked us if they could fund our next clinical study. So we're in process on a $3.6 million investment with the ADDF. And then RBC is the North America's biggest, fifth biggest bank. They're highlighting our results too, because they see an enormous potential for an IPO, and they want to be the banker that takes us over the line with an IPO. So they see the exit potential on the horizon, and they know this could be huge. So the therapy involves calibration. There's the stimulator, there's the camera. Normally during calibration, the patient is wearing an EEG, but they only do that once every 3 months. So just once every 3 months, they do calibration, and then it's weekly 20-minute therapy, totally painless, lay back in a recliner, keep your eyes open. They don't feel a thing. That's the patient experience. We've got patents granted that cover the method by which we're doing personalization, granted in any brain disease. So not just Alzheimer's, but stroke, TBI, OCD, ADHD, I could go on. Any brain disease that involves a circuit that can be probed using our technology to personalize, that's covered. And we did our FTO and it's clean. This is a coup too. We just got reimbursement codes from Medicare. So Medicare needs to code everything, as you guys know, most of you know, for payment. So a big step on the way to having Medicare pay for this is to have the codes granted that cover the therapy. And these codes are very specific to what we do. In fact, nobody can build these codes except us, because if they were to build these codes, they'd be violating our patents. So it becomes a moat. So we're well on our way to having Medicare pay $22,000 per patient per year. Now, we make money by selling the entire system. The system actually exists. It's sourced from Nexstim. So this is not a mock-up. This is the actual system. It's just repurposed, and we tweak it and connect it to the cloud so we can do our personalization in the cloud. But we'll sell the entire system, which we source from a company called Nexstim, which is publicly traded on the Finnish stock exchange. We'll also charge per use. So recurring revenue every time the system is used. So $125 every time the system is used, which really adds up. $290,000 goes to Sinaptica roughly per system per year, and that's just from 40 patients. So as I like to joke, the numbers get stupidly big really fast if you think about 40 patients generating $290,000. For the neurologist, if reimbursement codes pay what we think they'll pay, and we've done a full reimbursement assessment by Paul Rudolph, which you're welcome to read, the reimbursement should pay around $366 per week. So that's $22,000 per patient per year that goes to the neurologist. So that's $730,000. Now the neurologist has to pay us the per click fee of $125. They got to hire a technician. These are not highly skilled technicians. Many of them are just right out of college, and then they have to buy the machine. But the net to the neurologist is about $400,000. $400,000 per system per year from just 40 patients. Some of these neurologists have hundreds of patients. So you can see how this becomes a very lucrative profit center for a neurologist and a reason to adopt and stick with the therapy. Also that it works and it's not invasive. So we have a steady pathway to 900 million in sales by year 7 on the market. This is just US. This is just on label. It involves launching to the large memory centers and hospitals, and then expanding into the private practices, and then finally into infusion centers. Because they're already seeing patients for the Alzheimer's drugs, why not install our system right next to a phlebotomist chair? It's about the same level of skill. So that puts us on a path to 900 million in sales by year 7. 700 million of that is recurring revenue with drug-like margins. Drug-like margins on this piece. And this is the capital piece. That's just 2.8%. Cumulative penetration, 130,000 out of the 6 million who have Alzheimer's. So this is a very conservative pathway. Now, in the hands of a Boston Scientific, they could do 2.2 billion by year 7. Now, how do I know what Boston Scientific would do? Well, I was the head of strategy for their billion-dollar neuromodulation division for about a decade. And my group did all the financial modeling on every acquisition we ever did. This is the very division that would most easily acquire Sinaptica. So I kind of know, what they're looking for. And I'm already in talks with Boston Scientific on potentially partnering. I also led the global Cosman franchise. So I've sold capital equipment in 40 countries. Rich McCary is our president. He was on Wall Street at a company called Bear Stearns. And then he was part of building Sarepta into the $14 billion juggernaut that it was. Greg Harper has built a system that is a TMS system from the ground up at Neuronetics. He comes from Philips and GE before that. So he knows what he's doing with TMS technology. And here he's only taking somebody else's technology and tweaking it to do our therapy. And Lisa Fosdick, what a rock star. She has really done a great job in designing this pivotal study. She's just run a pivotal study for a former company right before this. So she knows the site, she knows the PIs, the ratings, the vendors, everything related to running a pivotal study she's just done. And then Johannes is looking after the software piece and has an ML background that's helping us with the signal processing, which is very complex here. We've got some of the biggest names in the world on our SAB. We've got some great commercial advisors as well, including the guy who built the market for TMS for depression, who knows where all the bodies are buried and everything that was done right and everything that was done wrong in building the market for TMS for depression is helping us with our commercial strategy. Now, this convertible note builds on the seed round that Sony and Time Zero Capital were part of, and about $6 million in non-dilutive funding that came before. This $6 million note funds a 3-site study in Italy that's studying early Alzheimer's. So get to the disease earlier in its progression, and therefore patients will have much longer on this therapy and much more extension of life. So if we're successful in this, we will double the LTV per patient, double the LTV. And that data should read out by the end of 2026. That study is already rolling. We announced enrollment in it about 3 weeks ago, got about 6 patients in out of 60, so about 10th enrolled. This convertible note will roll into the Series A, which funds the pivotal. The pivotal is about 15 sites, mainly US, one or two sites in Italy, and up to 300 patients. That could put us on the market by 2029. However, recent conversations, including just yesterday with the FDA, indicate they are open to an early approval accelerated pathway. That could put us on the market by 2028. That is just around the corner. So think about what that would mean. A non-invasive therapy that actually works in Alzheimer's. For some patients, there is no alternative, in the moderate category especially. It's a moneymaker for neurologists that's patented, and by the way, can be combined with any drug. Think of what that would mean for patients and caregivers. In just 3 years, that could be on the market. And when we're on the market, Boston Scientific could swoop in and buy us. They bought Exonics just last year for $3.7 billion. That is a neuromodulation play. These are all neuromodulation plays in some way, and I was a part of a lot of these acquisitions when I was at Boston. Medtronic could also buy us. We're talking to them. Abbott could buy us. They have a huge neuromodulation division. LivaNova, we just talked to. J&J maybe. GE is a great candidate for an acquirer. They're investing in all sorts of things related to Alzheimer's imaging and diagnostics, so why not move into treatment? They did make a big investment into Insightec, that's non-invasive ablation. I know their CFO because he hired me at Baxter 20 years ago. Or we could IPO, and Novocure is a great example of an IPO. They IPO'd for $1.8 billion, and then they rocketed to $23 billion. So Novocure treats glioblastoma, which is another fatal brain disease. Sound familiar? Well, Alzheimer's is 400 times bigger than the glioblastoma market. So think about that in the context of this exit. That's what the exit potential here could be. There's about 3 million left in our convertible note. So 3 million left for angels. It has a 55 million val cap and a 20% discount. But the special deal that I've offered to a few angel groups, and I'll now extend to the syndicate, is through the end of March. And I know we only have about 2 weeks left in March. Through the end of March, I'm lowering the val cap. I have board approval to lower the val cap to 40 million. It's not hard to see returns of something like 23x, assuming a Novocure-like exit on a val cap of 40. So that's open and rolling. Got about 40 investors in, taking new commitments every day. To put your hand up and we'll reserve a spot for you. You can close the investment anytime between now and the end of March. You'd be joining Sony and Time Zero Capital. It funds the phase 2 study as we talked about. That's the story. Unprecedented efficacy in the disease of the century with a non-invasive that has almost no side effects, works in every domain, is a patented moneymaker for neurologists. That's what I got.
Great presentation, Ken. Clarence, what's your
Thanks.
first question there?
So Ken, I'm impressed, and I've had family members that have been affected by the disease, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Everything lines up really good. To me, I think your nemesis is time, because you've got a lot of sequences that are lined up, and if this happens, you can pivot to the left, or if that happens, you can pivot to the right, and et cetera. So I'm curious about the go-to-market. You listed a lot of different pharma companies and biopharma companies and et cetera. One of the things that struck me was people are already in the market fighting against each other in this particular swim lane, right? What about somebody who is big and bad but doesn't have a solution in this swim lane that they could bolt this on and instantly be in this market. And I don't know who that is, but I'm just thinking that from a strategic standpoint, I think that would behoove you to think about who that entity might be. And then the second part of that is whoever that entity is, find out who their biggest backer is, and that could be your institutional, funder, if you will, to make this bridge. Because to me, I think you're extremely selling yourself short by the valuation that you have based on the impact of what you're saying in the trajectory. And even if you got it 70% right, it's still a massive, valuation there. So I think you're really hurting yourself by reverse engineering this. I realize you got to get the cash in order to get the clinical trials going, but I think that if that makes sense to you, I would go back and restructure who you're talking to and why you're talking to them. And because again, you want to speed up the process, and time is your enemy based on everything that you just said. Hopefully that makes sense, Ken.
Yeah, and look, we're talking to a lot of strategics. We've been approached by some drug companies who know that their drugs don't work very well. We are connected to ASI through confidential means that I can't go into, but at the highest level at ASI, we're in discussions with them. They would like to see a combination approach work. Also, the ADDF talked to us about a combination approach because the drug companies know, and I'm looking down their pipeline, they know what I know, that there's no silver bullet in the pipeline, not for as far as the eye can see. This is going to be a combinatorial approach. So if we can combine with a drug and get 90% slowing or even 100% slowing, that would be tantamount to a cure. I think our results by themselves, just standalone, are so profound. We're adding years of additional life to these patients. We may be selling ourselves short. It is a complicated device. It does require weekly visits. So there's that. It's not a simple injection or a pill that you can take once a day and be done with. But in return for 20 minutes of painless stimulation once a week, we can give you your life and everything it means to be human and prevent your loved one from forgetting your name and degenerating into a childlike state requiring 24 around-the-clock care at enormous expense. That's the value we give to patients and their caregivers. So maybe we are selling ourselves short, but this is a tough area of medicine, but if this works, my God.
Yeah, I get it, Ken. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted one more point before we have to move on. But I think if you reverse engineer and say, if you answer the question, what does success look like? And you put some trajectories up there that are pretty mind-numbing when you think about it. However, there's a couple of glitches in there. And what I'm saying is that if you follow the money, the people desperately would like to get into this market share that aren't, or have poor performing drugs, like you said. That's a critical demand and a need that somebody has that you fill. And so if you go with a backer to them, then that makes a lot of sense. That's all I'm saying. I just think you just need to change the way you're going about how you're fundraising, because again, your valuation, you're selling yourself way too short, because this is too big. My thoughts.
Thanks, Clarence. I appreciate it. It is a huge breakthrough and it could have tremendous potential. Thanks for your input.
Sure.
Great. Well, that's the end of our time. Thank you guys for a great presentation, Ken, and great questions, Clarence. And let's move to our final presenter, Andrew Dahl. Andrew, if you wanted to launch your slides and kick off, please let us know when you're ready. And we see your slides. You're on mute.
Thank you, Hall. Think of all the circumstances where rapid, complex diagnostic is needed immediately in the ER, urgent care, accident scene, combat zone, maybe a remote location for infectious disease, concussions, metabolic disorders, or the millions of hospital-acquired infections that can quickly spiral out of control once a patient is discharged from the hospital. So the closer to the patient, better the outcome. The entire diagnostics industry is moving in that direction, and that's boosting demand for ever more sophisticated tests at point of care, point of need, at home. But the current offerings are either, oh, tell me it's not happening. For whatever reason, gentlemen,
There it goes.
Anyway, current offerings are either expensive toaster-sized analyzers that need a tech and sample preparation, or the limited information sensitivity you get from things like a urine dipstick, the yes or no answers from lateral flow devices that we've all come to know and love. And then what do you do with these analog or visual results? So biomems make slow, complex lab tests work faster and smarter outside the lab where they're needed. Capturing raw patient sample, we port lab quality results to our smart app in 5 minutes or less. So our platform consists of a simple to use test cartridge, a handheld analyzer, and a smart app. So we adapt existing clinically validated, already FDA approved immunoassays to our biosensor based platform, and we can measure up to 10 different biomarkers at once. Anything from a single hormone to a single bacteria at sensitivity down to 1/3 of 1 part per trillion in a device so simple it can be administered by anyone, anywhere. And this can be manufactured cheaply in the millions, providing ultra high sensitivity and speed never before possible at point of care. So essentially an order of magnitude improvement in performance, access, and affordability. So that single-use test cartridge can process, like I said, up to 10 different diagnostic tests, already FDA approved. So that's more than twice of what's in market or on the drawing board. And we're able to then create dozens of different tests that were never possible to do outside a clinical lab. So think large-scale public screening for TB, malaria, meningitis from a single saliva sample, or maybe triage for concussion at the scene, protect warfighters against bioweapons, or address, a billion-dollar problem like chronic wound management due to diabetes. Now, as a platform, we're not really tied to any single disease state or condition. We can adapt almost any FDA-approved immunoassay, of which there are thousands, to our patent-pending platform on behalf of global brands that make, market, or offer diagnostics as a service. So our go-to-market strategy is our business model. Partner with global brands to bring products they want to a rapidly growing $43 billion point-of-care diagnostics market, while we minimize our risk, stabilize cash flow, get a global footprint in a hurry. And we can also create custom clinical trials tools for CROs to use for either biopharmaceutical or other therapeutic interventions. Now, we've just landed a corporate customer that validates our go-to-market strategy and business model. Hill Science has asked us to develop a canine Alzheimer's test, if you can believe it, for their exclusive use, beginning with a feasibility study. Now, this may sound like a sidebar or a dead end, but dogs and humans share the exact same disease pathways, gene signaling, and progression. So the data that we collect for a canine test can speed up compliance for a first ever non-invasive human Alzheimer's test. And the canine test requires no FDA approval. So it goes to market as soon as it's developed and validated. Now that dovetails quite nicely with a healthy aging and longevity test product we've been developing to use as proof of concept for our diagnostics platform, and which we presented to Procter & Gamble as a private label deal. This is another speed to market product, requires no FDA approval because we're measuring nutritionally driven biomarkers that affect aging. Now, these tests and other tests that follow, which would, the ones that follows would obviously be true medical diagnostics, are not market adoption guesses. So the nice hockey sticks you see there are really estimates of contracted production volumes that we negotiate in advance with established industry leaders. And of course, multiple revenue streams decrease risk. So if one test isn't getting the traction we expect, well, there are 3 or 4 more in the pipeline. And that's a singular strength of our platform approach. Now, we're looking to close a $2 million seed round this first quarter so we can take our working benchtop prototypes to a full end-to-end demonstration. So in other words, we want to get a few thousand of these, a few of these, so that we can demonstrate in person how this works, from capturing the patient sample to uploading the results. And then we use these production intent demonstrators to close contracts and start building revenues immediately with technical collaborations and development contracts. Those would then, of course, be followed by manufacturing and product sales at commercial volumes. So the pre-seed funding already in place is just north of 3 million, so we do have some skin in the game. Now, once we've met the demonstration milestone, a second late seed round of about 2 million allows us to prove manufacturability at scale with a pilot production setup, which, by the way, would be perfectly capable of producing up to 1 million saleable test cartridges in the first year. Now, these cartridges can sell between $10 and $35, depending on the diagnostic targets each. So being able to generate 1 million of these a year, already foil packed and ready to use, is not a bad way to go with just 2 million in additional funding. And then only after we sign a manufacturing contract with one of the big guys do we go out with a Series A to fund additional manufacturing capacity. Now, what that does is puts us really in a position to be acquired. So at that point, we've answered what most acquirers want to know. Does it work? Can it be made at commercial volumes cheaply? And then we have the specific value propositions that closes the deal. And these are the BioMEMS platform attributes: speed to market, broad range of use cases, low cost of manufacturing, market leading performance. So when we exit, then actually becomes kind of more of a strategic and financial decision. Both the conceptual and execution risk continues to decrease over time as multiple revenue streams come online. And of course, the enterprise value continues to increase. And, basically timing is everything. Every 20 years or so, a new diagnostic platform emerges and changes the game. We think we're that platform. So we're delivering on the promise of earlier lab-on-a-chip MEMS devices. We've solved a lot of the problems, and we've vastly increased the price-performance equation. Now, as far as the team, 7 patents are pending, 6 more are drafted for a revolutionary biosensor created by our chief science officer, now board advisor, considered one of the top 10 diagnostic innovators in the world, and has dozens of successful product launches at Siemens, and then prior to that at Bayer. His protege, our VP R&D, runs our developmental lab in Colorado. Our lead engineer, or resident whiz kid, holds multiple degrees in math, physics, engineering. He created the electronics and firmware that make this platform possible. And of course, we do have a network of trusted advisors and consultants. We do continue to recruit C-level management as we build out the team. And that is pretty much it.
Great. Thanks, Andrew, for a great presentation. Clarence, what are your questions?
Andrew, one of the things that strikes me is when you think about the speed to manufacturing, then you do your testing, and then you get to, like you said, the validation of can you do it in scale, and do you have a corporate contract? So what would be the premise around going to somebody who is a specific swim lane? Because you listed a bunch of different opportunities where you could have, whether it's wound care or, a bunch of things. I don't remember exactly the whole list, right? But there was about 10 of them on there, right? So what about picking one of those and finding somebody who's in that space, as opposed to, you know, being Baskin Robbins where you've got 30 flavors necessarily initially, but you do one thing, and then you can license that out to the other people that are in those swim lanes to raise some money without diluting yourself. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, we've been trying to do that, but that takes money as well.
Okay.
So that the 2 million basically does both. It allows us to finish our production intent demonstrators and also to do the marketing. The way it really worked out, Hamp, was people know what we're doing. You know, I've met with the CEO of Siemens, I've met with the CEO of Becton Dickinson, and basically those big companies are sort of waiting like vultures for us to get to a certain point, and then I think they're going to jump in. I think that point is when we have the demonstrators in hand. Having said that, we have early adopters or more, I'll call them more adventurous brands like Hill Science Diet that's really wants to push the envelope. And we go where the money is. They're paying us to develop a test for them. You know, that becomes our focus. Procter & Gamble wants healthy living, so we've got basically 2 projects. I can't boil the ocean. We can't go after everybody, so I'm going to try to run those 2 to ground and see where we end up.
Yeah, Andrew, sorry I didn't interrupt you. Go ahead, finish your thought. Sorry.
Oh, that's right. That was it.
So the 2 million on the seed, what was that? What was that based on the pre-money valuation? How much was that?
14.
Can I see that slide again real quick, if we got time? Okay. So my question, Andrew, would be, I think maybe there's another audience that you might want to talk to if you haven't thought about it already, and that is, think about the people that are backing the companies, not the big behemoths like Siemens or some of the other ones, but if you think about in the same space that Hill's, you know, dog food people are and other things, what about somebody like that would be the strategic investor? Because it just seems like it would help you with distribution if you had one of those guys there, as opposed to just capital raising. I realize that 2 million to some of these companies, you know, they don't really want to be bothered. That's why I'm thinking if you have something more like a niche company that could help you, they can make a decision quicker, because what you need is somebody who can encompass what your vision is, take a piece of it and say, yep, we'll take that piece of the pie. Here's your funding to do that, and we'll advantage ourselves of the success you're going to get from everything else, but this is our swim lane. That's just something that struck me.
Oh yeah, no, we'd love to do that. But what company did you mention?
I didn't. I simply was using it as a model. You can substitute the company, you know, to do your research as to who fits it. I didn't, because I don't know the space. I'm simply saying there's a formula here. You just need to plug in a couple of people that are different in here. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no. I agree. The issue is that finding those companies puts you on a marketing track, puts you on a business development track.
Yeah.
And you know, and you and I both know what that costs to do.
Yep.
So that's kind of the problem. That's why we're kind of sticking with Hills and Procter and Gamble and trying to just run with that for the moment. Now that may not be the best strategy, but it's sort of like our only strategy. I can go out and try to get more of these kind of relationships, but they take time and money to.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, sir.
No, I think you have another question, Clarence. We have time. This is our last one for the day. We're going to close the webinar after this. So was there anything else on your mind, Clarence?
Well done, Andrew. Really happy to see the progress there, man. I know it's painstakingly frustrating. I think you're just one phone call away from, you know, finding love with the right partner. I just think you haven't knocked on the right door yet.
Yeah, no, I'm thanks, and I hope you're 100% right, and that phone call comes in the next hour.
Okay. Well, great. Well, that wraps up our presentations for today, guys. Appreciate everybody, Nathan, Andrew, Ken, I think he's on a plane by now, for giving a great presentation. Clarence, I want to thank you for great questions, great feedback. Enjoyed having you here. Love to connect you with these guys to continue the discussion if you like. And those in the audience, appreciate you joining today. And we have some of your poll results. We'll be passing that out here shortly. With that, we're going to wrap it up. Was there any other thoughts there from your side, Clarence?
I think that everybody, remembers the same premise, is that, in the expression, when there's no wind, you got to row. So sometimes it's just, there's no substitute for it, unfortunately.
I gotcha. That's a good saying. We need to put that on the webinar masthead there. We see a lot of rowing going on. But with that, well, thank you for your time, guys, and we'll go and close it for now. And we'll see everybody next time. Appreciate your joining us today, and have a good day.